Hey YouTube, it's Thomas here. So, the first time, your first kiss, your first love, it's always special. Well, in my case, this is the first time a company actually sent me a speaker to review. So, it is special. Hey guys, so the Buchardt S300. Now, this is the 10th time I'm trying to film this video. And the reason is because the first time when I filmed it, it was like 30 minutes long. I don't think anybody wants to hear me talk half an hour about speakers. So I've been trying to cut it as short as possible. And it's difficult because there's so much to talk about with these speakers. So for those of you who are new to my channel, when I talk about a speaker, I try to add a bit of backstory to it, try to make it interesting. For me, the least interesting part to talk about is actually how it sounds. It's all the other stuff that goes with it that makes it interesting for me. And for those of you who have been following my channel, you know that everything I talk about on my channel, I buy it myself. And the good part is that I get to say whatever I want, and I don't need to sugarcoat anything. So a while ago, Mr. Buchardt reached out to me and asked if I'll be interested to review his speaker. So I took a look at the website, and then I say, okay, this is what I can do. If I like the speaker, I'll make a video. If I don't, then I'll just simply don't make a video. And part of the reason why I want to do it is because I have started a few companies myself, and I know it's very difficult. And if I can give a helping hand without compromising my integrity, absolutely, it'll be my pleasure. And fortunately, I like these speakers, so that's why I'm making this video on it. So another reason, which is the most important reason why I'm curious about these speakers, is the fact that they use the manufacturer selling directly to consumer model. Now, in the past, I've said that when it comes to brand name, usually, let's say speaker, in the same price bracket, they usually perform about the same. And the only exception is DIY companies or companies that sell directly to consumer. And the reason is because they bypass the distributor and dealers, which I'll touch on shortly. So for me, what's interesting about these speakers, there are 5 things. Number 1 is the price. Think of it this way. If I were the regular branding, this is how it works. Now the ratio might not be perfect, it might not be correct, but the idea is this. If it takes $500 to build a speaker, you sell it to the distributor for $1,000. Distributor sells it to the dealer for $2,000, and dealer sells it to us for about $3,000 to $4,000. So, because of everybody needing to make a profit, and which is fine, because, there's advantages with this model, we as consumer end up paying a certain price. Now, when we're talking about manufacturer directly selling to consumer, then you bypass the distributor and the dealer. So you get a lot of value for the money. These are $1,500, these speakers. I was wondering, okay, so how good can they perform compared to the other speakers that I'm used to? So the second thing I look for is build quality. So if you go on the website, they do talk about it. Like for example, the cabinets are built in China, but it's mass produced. So it's really high quality. This is as professional as it gets. And the other part people don't realize, I guess because it's not really mentioned on the website, is that these woofers and tweeters, they're very high quality. So this speaker has a 1-inch soft dome tweeter. It has a 6-inch woofer here. It's rated at 4 ohms, 88 dB. And what's really interesting are the woofers used in the speaker as well as the tweeter. You see, these woofers are used in really high quality speakers. Now, it's not exactly the same woofer. It's the same, I guess, design, or it's a bit different. But you'll find these woofers in speakers like the Revell M126, Gato speakers, Wilson audio speakers. And as you know, those are pretty high-end speakers. And these drivers, they come from this guy called Eric, and who used to work for ScanSpeak. And as you know, ScanSpeak woofers, tweeters are really high-quality stuff. But the most important part is that the crossover is designed by somebody who used to work at Dying Audio. I've seen crossovers from big companies in the lower end models, and some of them really look like it's made from my university years. What I like about this company is that they actually put photos of how their crossover look like. They also put up graphs on how their speaker perform. They're confident enough to put all this data up on the website. This one, the look, unfortunately, that doesn't look too nice, right? It looks a little bit too boxy. I guess that's the downside to it. The good part about this company is that you got 30 days free trial. If you don't like it, they'll pay shipping and you can ship it back. And the last two things that I want to talk about is the bass and how it sounds. So the bass. For those of you who have been following my channel, you know that I've been playing with a lot of bookshelf speakers recently. And every time I say, oh, the bass is adequate, bass is okay for a bookshelf speaker. It would be nice if I can say the bass is great, period. And the bass on these speakers are incredible. And there are times where I actually have to get up from my chair to double check if my subwoofers are on. I know we hear this all the time in people reviewing or magazines where people say, oh, it sounds like there's a subwoofer on, that the bass is so incredible. I've gone through many speakers, and the bass on this is equivalent to a full-size tower speaker, if not more. If you have to add a subwoofer with this speaker, then you're the kind of person who would add a subwoofer even you bought a floor standing speaker. If the KEF LS50 made a name for itself because it has amazing clarity, lots of good detail, then this speaker would have made a name for itself if he had the same marketing power as KEF for its bass. If you close your eyes, you cannot tell that this is a bookshelf speaker. In fact, out of all the speakers I've tried, bookshelf speakers, this has the most powerful bass and good bass. Because you can have good bass, you can have powerful bass with a Serving Vega, but as you move up the audiophile world, what you're looking for is just not punchy bass. It's not enough. It has to be defined, has to be fast, has to be low, clear, and so forth. And just because you have a 24-inch woofer and you can start shaking the foundation of your house, it means nothing in the world of high-end audio. Every time when I get a speaker home, there are a few tracks that I use to test them. For example, the KEF LS50, because the fact that they use metal-based dome tweeters, they're very good for certain kind of instrument. For example, like this. It's because there's longer decay with these metal-based dome tweeter, so they sound just more pleasant, there's more zing to it, there's more bite to it. And if you're the kind of person who like this, then these speakers are not for you. In fact, every time when I switch from a metal-based dome tweeter to a soft dome tweeter speaker, I have to go through a detox period to get used to it. You see these speakers on here? These are my own reference speaker, the Titan Earthquake, and it uses a soft dome tweeter. So when I switch from my Canton to these speakers, I have to, it takes me a while to get used to it. I feel like there's a veil in front of it. But these speakers, the soft dome tweeters, they're not fatiguing. And they're good for listening for long sessions. And in this case, these speakers are very neutral. Because they're neutral, it's easy to listen to a wider range of music. And also, the recording doesn't have to be perfect. If you take a look at my Totem Signature One here, this is a $3,000 speaker. Top end is fantastic, amazing. There's one catch: the recording has to be perfect. So these S300 are much more forgiving, and they work pretty well with all kinds of amps. So that's the good part with them. Now, the fact that they have very good bass, for me, they sound really warm. There's a lot of meat on the bone, and it's my kind of sound. I like it when there is this weight. And the good part having a lot of bass is that they sound convincing. Now, I'm not saying they sound accurate, because for me there's no accurate speaker. But if you compare, let's say, to these Totem Signature One here, they're much more convincing in the sense, like if you have a band playing in front of you, it feels more real compared to, let's say, this Totem Signature One. Totem Signature One or any other bookshelf speaker that I've tried, maybe the KEF LS50 wireless version, but all the other speakers, bookshelf speakers I tried, if you don't put on the subwoofer, it's It sounds great still, but it's not convincing. So these speakers are convincing. So the music track I just played before, they're good to demo metal-based dome tweeters. Now for this speaker, what's good to demo with are tracks that have a lot of bass. Now if you can find this album from Patricia Barbara, try it on your speaker. If it can rumble the floor, then you have your speakers can go pretty low. Next, the off-axis response on these speakers are pretty good. So the advantage is that if you want a little bit more bite, then you tow it in towards you. If not, you can just point it straight. You get a bigger sound stage. So there's a lot of things you can do with it. If you're the kind of person who believes in cables, yeah, change cables and it changes the sound much more than, let's say, the KEF LS50. Because those are very bright speakers and there's a very narrow range I can play with. There's a bigger range if you believe in cables. So the only thing that I noticed that is, I don't know, is it a negative or not, but it's a bit glassy with certain setup. As I said, it's very sensitive to cables, and in this case, in my case, when I put a Class D amp on it especially, it feels a little bit glassy on the top end. And I noticed that it reminded me of my Dying Audio S5.4 Contour. That's a $10,000 speaker. The top end has that glassiness to it. Well, I guess the good side is that you can hear the singer lips moving when you have that type of sharpness. Well, it's not there, not that level, but it's not silky smooth like the Focus 160, like the Dying Audio Focus 160. So if you want that silky smooth sound, then you'll be looking for the Dying Audio Focus 160 at double the price of this. But if you want it not too smooth, but you want a little bit of bite to it, a bit leaning towards the KEF LS50 type, then this is the kind of tweeter for it. But regardless, it's nowhere near the KEF LS50 type, so that's why it's much more easy to listen to, and it pairs well with a lot of amps that we try. We were worried that, you know, it's 4 ohms, 88 dB, it might need a lot of power to run, but after going through 10 amps, no, not necessary. Okay, so I brought it to my friend's place. If there's such a thing as a degree in audiophile, then this friend of mine would have a PhD in it, maybe 2. He's been into stereo for about 30-40 years, been reading a lot on it, and every time when I have a question, I ask him. He has a lot of experience. So he is into vintage gear right now. So I asked him, can you please help me test out this speaker? I'd like to know how it performs with less expensive gear. I use the word less expensive because the gears I use to drive them usually is about close to $10,000. And it's not a real world test of these speakers. So that's why I asked him to help me out. He gone through maybe 6 or 7 setup. I'll list them all here. And the surprising fact is, he told me it works well with vintage gear. I'm like, oh, really? Vintage gear don't have a lot of power, but he said, no, it works well with it. Keep in mind, he's judging it from an audiophile level now. He's not treating it like a ELAC B6.2. He's taking these speakers seriously now. So he's going really hard on them. I remember when I first brought it over to his place, we plugged it to the Bryston 3B, and I think the preamp was the Bryston 1B. And it sounded great. I'm like, oh, this sounds good enough for, period, good enough. Like, I would say a lot of people would actually say that this is good enough. Only thing is that I noticed with that setup, maybe it's the power or whatever, the integration of both woofers does not seem perfect. It feels like there's a little bit of gap to it, but it still sounded great. Maybe because I'm very picky when it comes to that. And that reminded me when I first had my Focal 1028, I noticed that too with certain setup, and maybe you need a certain level of power to get that full integration, but it was fine. It sounded great. Later on, my friend told me, out of all the setup, that was actually the worst setup. So imagine, if I was there the whole few days, because I left it to him for a few days to test. And so he said that all the other ones are really good. The best setup was with the Prima Luna Prologue 1, I think. That's the integrated amp. He said that if he need to demo these speakers, he would use the Prima Luna Prologue 1 integrated amp. He has about 20-30 pairs of vintage speakers. Lots of amps, integrated amps, and so forth. He told me that if his wife gave him the ultimatum that you can only keep one speaker, he would keep this speaker. So it's that good. Okay, I felt good that he approved it. The only thing he said that he wished that the mid-range was a bit more had more density. There we go. But he's thinking that maybe it's because the equipment that he's using is not good enough to drive these speakers. Because after I brought it to his home, I brought it to my other friend's place. Now, this time is the complete opposite. We're driving it with about $20,000-$30,000 worth of equipment. So that's the friend who owns the Fokai Kanta. We wanted to hear this speaker at its top performance. So he was driving it with the Macintosh 452, Audio Research LS25, Audio Research VT200, speaker cables that cost more than these speakers. And he was sending me reports. He said, okay, I tried this combination, this is how it sounds. I tried this and so forth. And finally he said that, okay, I got the perfect combination. And he said that these are the best bookshelf speaker he has ever tried in his place. Even better than the Dying Audio 160. And I actually say to him, whoa, relax, maybe because you think that it's better than the Dying Audio 160 right now, which is twice the price of these speaker, because you're driving it with the Macintosh 452. At the time you were driving the Dying Audio with the Audio Research VT200, so it's not the same anymore. So he tried the test again with the VT200 and say, okay, yeah, he prefers the Focus 160 tweeter a bit more. But we can't conclude that if we had the Focus 160 with the MC452, it will outperform this. You can't conclude it that way. The fact is that it is good enough, or so good, that setup alone, he said that he's happy when you listen to it. Now keep in mind that for somebody who listens to a $13,000 speaker every day, for him to be able to sit down and listen to this speaker for extended period is a big accomplishment. In fact, one of the points he made is this: if you are somebody saving up, wanting to buy a $10,000, $15,000 speaker, this is a good stepping stone. Meaning that even at the Macintosh 452 level, you can still benefit from these speakers. He's actually quite excited about it. He said, man, if they ever come out with a full-size tower speaker, he might actually sell the Kanta and get these speakers, the Buchardt speakers, because they're so much more value for the money. So, okay, and remember I said that my other friend wished there was a little bit more density in the mid-range. This friend, with his equipment, said that nope, no problem whatsoever with that. I asked him, can you try with a more realistic setup, like your Onyx A55? That's a 55 watt amp. He tried it and he said that, look, he can only accept listening with that setup if he put the LS25 as a preamp and very expensive speaker cable. Then he said that, yes, I can accept it. I can listen to it for a long time. He told me it makes him very happy when he listens to it. So for him, it is a very good speaker. And so I felt relief when I heard that too. So I'm going to pause the video here for a second, and I'm going to ask you to like the video. And I'm not asking you to like the video because you like the video, but because you like the idea that us as consumer can buy a speaker for a reasonable price and have the ability to test it at our home for 30 days. And by you liking this video, you're going to help YouTube's algorithm in recommending this video so that we can reach more people. Because even though if the speaker is not for you, if we support company like this, eventually they'll produce some kind of product that will be to your taste. who knows, maybe one day, if you're the kind of person who likes metal-based dome tweeter, one day they might produce one, and it's possible to get it at a good price. So if you support the idea of it, then take a second and just hit the like button. So who should not buy it? If you're somebody who like the KEF LS50, you like that zing on the top end, you love detail, you like sharpness, brightness is a good thing also, then this is not for you. If you're simply curious, then this is also not for you, because you're putting hardship on the company. I know they have a 30-day risk-free return policy, but if 100 people buy just for the fun of it, because they know they can return it, it doesn't help the company. In fact, it's bad for the company. So if you don't have intention of buying this speaker, you should not buy it. So who should buy it? People who want to experience high-end audio, people who like to listen to a wide variety of music, who have musics with different recording. Doesn't have to be top best recording. People who like good low-end bass. The only thing is that the speaker is very big, so you need a bit of space to breathe, and you need the room size for the bass to really kick in, and power too. So yeah, keep that in mind. And if you're somebody who's looking for a pair of speaker in the $700-800 US zone, then I would say, yeah, save up, just stretch your budget and go all the way to $1,002 and get this speaker instead. Because as I mentioned before, my friend said, you know, you can use this speaker, or you can keep upgrading your front end. Let's think of it this way: you buy this for $1,002 and you keep upgrading your front end up to a point where it's so good that you're ready to transition to this $5,000-10,000 speaker. You can just sell this and lose a few $100. It's like renting it while not losing time. Because a lot of times I say, you know, these speakers are great for its price. Life is short. There's only a certain amount of time you can listen. Your years are optimal. And you might be saving money with, let's say, getting an ELAC B6.2. Fantastic speaker, 100%. If your budget is there, then that's the best speaker you can get. But if you can stretch your budget a little bit more, then it makes sense to go this route. So I was thinking, just like Andrew Jones said, you know, when he built the ELAC series, his goal was to attract people, new people, into the stereo world, to go like, wow, stereo can sound so amazing. He did it with the budget sector. So for me, the KEF LS50, these speakers fall in the category where it's like the next level up. Once you're drawn into the stereo world, you want to move up the next level, then these speakers are it. All right, so I think that's about it. I hope it's not too long. Sorry if it's too long, the video today. Until next time, questions, comments, you know where to put them.